Austria's deadliest school shooting in Graz, a 21-year-old former student opened fire at Burg Dreier Schützengasse in Graz on June 10th, killing 10 people and wounding 11. He then committed suicide in a school restroom. Victims included predominantly students, 6 women and 3 men, with a 10th dying later in hospital. He legally owned the firearms. Motives remain unclear, though a suicide note was found. Australia sanctions 2 Israeli ministers. Australia joined the UK, Canada, New Zealand and Norway in imposing sanctions on hard-right Israeli ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich for incitement of violence against Palestinians. The move has drawn criticism from the US and Israeli officials. Russian drone attack on Kharkiv. Russian overnight drone strikes in Kharkiv killed between 2 to 3 civilians and injured dozens up to 60, including children. Among the dead, a 47-year-old woman and a 65-year-old man. Residential buildings and a playground were hit. China and 53 African nations call for US de-escalation. During a trade huddle, China and 53 African countries urged the US to ease ongoing trade tensions, including rare earth export restrictions which threaten global markets. Gaza Freedom Flotilla intercepted. Israeli forces boarded the British-flagged Madeleine in international waters, 185 kilometers off Gaza on June 9. Climate activist Greta Thunberg and other activists were arrested, detained in Ashdod, and deported amid accusations of breaching international maritime law. UK and allies enforced travel bans on Israeli ministers. Parallel to Australia's actions, the UK, Canada, and others implemented travel bans on Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, citing their roles in settler-triggered violence in the West Bank. LA protests and curfew over immigration raids. Following federal ICE operations, protests in downtown Los Angeles devolved into vandalism and clashes. A nightly curfew was imposed by Mayor Karen Bass from 8 p.m. 6 a.m., backed by 700 Marine and National Guard personnel, with over 150 arrests reported. US-China Trade Framework Deal. In London talks, the US and China agreed to a framework aimed at de-escalating trade hostilities, including rare earth mineral exports. They have until August 10th to formalize a binding agreement, or heavy tariffs may resume. Greta Thunberg condemns Israel upon deportation. Upon her return from the Flotilla raid, Thunberg accused Israel of war crimes in Gaza and condemned the seizure of the Flotilla as illegal under international law. IMF visits Syria for first time since 2009. IMF staff conducted a 5-day mission in Damascus from June 1st to 5th, the lender's first visit since 2009. They met with Syrian finance officials to discuss reconstruction and economic recovery. World Bank cuts 2025 global growth forecast. The World Bank lowered its 2025 growth projection from 2.7% to approximately 2.3%, citing rising trade barriers and inflation. Global trade growth is expected to slow to 1.8%, with persistent uncertainty dampening investment. Still, recession risk remains under 10%. UN peacekeeper attack in southern Lebanon. While less reported, a UN mission recently condemned attacks targeting peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, raising alarm about regional instability. Further details might require more digging. Poland's PM Tusk facing confidence vote. Polish PM Donald Tusk has called a confidence vote following his coalition's presidential candidate loss. A defeat could force early elections and shift power to the Conservative Law and Justice Party. Bangladesh sets date for national elections. Bangladesh authorities officially scheduled its upcoming general election, a key democratic milestone, though full details of the date and context remain pending. Fugaku remains top supercomputer. Japan's Fugaku retains its global lead in Graph 500 supercomputing benchmarks, reaffirming its dominance in high-performance computing. Summit in Tajikistan for glacier protection. Tajikistan hosted an international summit focused on glacier preservation amid climate concerns. Leaders and scientists urged stronger global action and funding for mountain ecosystems. Russia-Ukraine prisoner swap continues. Following an earlier Istanbul brokered deal, Russia and Ukraine recently exchanged more prisoners of war as part of ongoing diplomatic efforts. Germany labels Russian strikes as terrorism. Germany's chancellor publicly condemned Russia's recent drone and missile strikes on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure as acts of terrorism against non-combatants. May sets record as second warmest, Greenland melting, climate data revealed. May 2025 is the second hottest May on record globally, with accelerated Greenland ice melt prompting fresh climate alarm. Pakistani extradition in terrorism plot. A Pakistani man suspected of planning an attack on a Jewish center in the US was extradited under anti-terrorism charges, underscoring international law enforcement cooperation.